This is WhyBeAre with bad news. My CPU cooler's pump has failed. That means whenever I try to turn on my computer, it overheats within like 30 seconds and shuts itself down. So we're going to need to fix that by replacing the CPU cooler I have installed, and I have already ordered one and it's on the way, and I will pick up this video when it arrives because I am lucky enough to be able to receive same day shipping because all the stores near me have absolute trash for actual CPU coolers, but apparently I could buy one online and it'll arrive the same day, so we'll see if this actually works because this is the first time I've ever done that. Right, so around 7:30 p.m. a box arrived. The new cooler is a Corsair H115i instead of a H110i, although they are pretty much the same. It's just kind of a rebranding, it sounds like. I didn't look too deeply into it. All I know is this is Corsair's 280 millimeter liquid cooler, which is what I wanted. And I'm going to try to open it with one hand, which is always the fun thing to do when you're doing like a video like this. Like, look, it's unboxing. So these are the fans, I'm almost certain. Here is the radiator. One-handed unboxing is stupid. There's the radiator. There's the cardboard. Got some accessories, mounting bracket type of stuff, and box onto the ground. So let's get the old one out, and then we'll get the new one in. First thing we're going to do is remove the 4 screws that hold the cooler on the CPU. Now these ones, they are kind of the hand screw type, so I can actually undo them with just my hand. And I know my camera work is not going to be the best here, but it's the best I can do. Like, I don't have the setup to do like this kind of stuff. I have a phone and a clamp light and a cheapo phone tripod. That is what we work with. So we got almost all of these screws off. There's one little nub thing I dropped. These aren't exactly screws. They're these little nubby things that go on the post that stick up. Now that we got those off, I'm going to just set them off to the side for now, because I won't need them anymore since this one's broken. We'll go ahead and unplug the micro USB cable that is used to control the pump speed through their software. We can pull that off, see what kind of a... It doesn't seem like it made the best of connection with the paste, but that's the stock paste as far as I remember. That doesn't look like something I applied, just looking at the way it's smeared. That has to be the stock paste that came with it, so there's really not much I could have done about that. And now, if you look over here, this part is still attached, and we're going to have to remove that. Now, removing that is not exactly the easiest thing, because you actually have to take apart the case to be able to access the screws that actually hold the radiator in, because the screws that hold the radiator in are on this side of the thing. There, that side, not this side. This side, the screws just holding the fans. So let me get a new camera angle up for you. So if you thought the last camera angle was bad, that's because you haven't seen this camera angle. So I have to, if I remember correctly, this thing just yanks off in the most violent way possible, which means the camera will shake a bunch as an extra bonus. Isn't that lovely? There we go, and it just actually totally removes. It's nice how this thing doesn't have any cables that attach to it, because all the power cables are on the top. So this thing is just, that's it with it. We could just set it down and be done with it. Now we can actually have access to the things that mount the radiator to the computer. Next, we're going to go ahead and remove the dust filter. And if I remember correctly, to remove this, all you do is you kind of press and pull on the edge, and then it comes off. And then we're going to have to remove a bunch of screws. Now, these ones I won't show you, but we're going to remove one there, 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 and there. Now you might think that you can just go ahead and remove this, but you're not quite right, because if you follow the cables, they actually go to the other side of the case. So we're going to have to go to the other side of the case to actually unplug these. But first, I got to figure out what cables need to be unplugged. So I'm just kind of looking around here trying to figure out where these cables go. So we got some right here, and I'll just try to watch where those are once I flip it over. So if I was looking right, it looks like this was the cable I was pointing at. So we'll go ahead and disconnect these two. These should be the 2 fans on the radiator. So we could feed these through to this side because we don't need those ones anymore. And then for this, you could also feed it through. And I think there's another cable over here that we're going to have to get before we can actually do anything. Just feed them through for now. That. And the other cable is probably a power one. And I think it uses the SATA power connector right here. So we're going to try to unplug this. See where that goes. Maybe that wasn't it. Nope, that was the wrong one. This is the one. There we go. I got my cables a little mixed up trying to look at them all. So we'll remove that one right there, and we'll plug the other one back in. And then we should be able to actually remove it. And I'm not exactly able to lift this up with just one hand easily, so I'll be right back as I lift it. So here's the radiator still in place. I know I'm switching up the camera all over the place, so it's hard to keep track of things. We should just be able to pull it out pretty good up. We got one cable still that's a little bit stuck on this. I don't think it's plugged into anything though, so all I probably have to do is just kind of lift the case up and yank on it, and it should come out, or not. What are you stuck on, huh? What are you? Oh! That cable is this one right here, the fan header that plugs into the motherboard. Yeah, I almost forgot about that. Good job there, WhyBeAre, right? We'll unplug that, then we could totally take this off. I forgot it even plugs into the motherboard, to be honest, because it uses software to control all the fans and stuff. So I just kind of think, oh yeah, you have the micro USB plug. I forget though, it still does plug into the motherboard, so we have to remove that one as well. Now the fans on this are still 100% functional, so I'm going to go ahead and just scavenge them off of this. But the rest of it's pretty much useless because this is like an all-in-one, and it'd be kind of difficult to actually use this radiator in a meaningful way because of the way it was built. So the rest of it's trash. This is kind of interesting. The fans on the H110i GT are different than the ones on the H115i. And from now on, I'm just going to call the H110i GT the old one and the H115i the new one. So the fan on the right here, that is the fan from the old one. The one on the left is the fan from the new one. The old one has much thicker blades on it, and the new one has thinner blades. And at first glance, it might look like the new one has more blades, but they actually have the same number of blades. The only real difference is the shape of the blade. So I was kind of curious, are these different fans that are on them or what? So I went ahead, pulled up Corsair's website, and I apologize for recording a screen like this, but as you can see, my computer's kind of out of commission at the moment. And I went to their website anyways, and I found the website for the H115i, which is the new one. And the fans on that look pretty similar to the ones I have. They both have a thinner looking blade, so I'm pretty sure it's the right fan in the box. So I scroll down, what's that fan called? It is called the SP140L. So I'm like, okay, then what was the fan on the old one called? So I pulled up the website for the H110i GT. And by the way, when I say old one, I actually mean this is their older model. The H115i came out after the H110i. So I scroll down, and this one, whoops, I scrolled a little too far, has SP140L fans. So apparently they have the same fan, right? Not exactly, because this one says advanced SP140L. Then you're like, wait a minute, why does the old one have the fan that's called advanced and the new one has the normal fan? Like, is the advanced actually worse than the unadvanced? I don't know. It's just kind of wacky to me that the naming is like that. Or maybe they're both the SP140L and one is version 1 and one is version 2, and advanced has no real meaning. I genuinely am kind of stumped at this. I tried to do a little bit of research, but doing research on a tablet sucks compared to a computer. So after just finding nothing about it, I was just like, that's kind of funny. And the pictures do support it though. Like, those fan blades on the old one are definitely fatter than the fan blades on the new one, and my fans I have before me agree with that information. Either way though, it doesn't really matter because I'm actually going to put this thing into a push-pull configuration because I have the hardware to do that just sitting around. So it might be hard to see this, but on the CPU right now, there is some thermal paste that we are going to have to remove. And right now, I really don't have any good ways of doing that properly, so we're going to just use a tissue. Like what you blow your nose on. We're going to wipe it down a bit, try to get as much off as we possibly can using this, and then I will try to find something a little bit better to actually get properly done at this. But you can see it is actually coming off. You have a dark spot on the tissue. So I'm not just rubbing this for no reason if it's not quite picked up on the screen or what you're watching. There is thermal paste on this coming off, and I still see quite a bit, but I really don't know if I'm going to be able to get much more of it off using just a dry tissue. I was debating, by the way, doing the light where it's pointing up the ceiling, but then it makes it look even worse. Like, the light is pointed straight upwards, right? It's bouncing off the ceiling, bouncing off of that, and it's still that reflective. I got a good light bulb in that clamp light. It's like an LED and everything. Before, it was the stupidest thing ever. Somebody had like the most low wattage best like bulb you could possibly buy. And it's like, this is useless. And it made everything look orange. It's like, I could not use this for recording. So I ended up replacing it with a good one. Anyways, it looks pretty clean right now, right? But I'm sure we could get more off if we get some rubbing alcohol. So I'm going to be right back as I hopefully find some. Do as I say, not as I do. So to properly clean the CPU, I got this. What is this? This is Storm React-to-Clean. What is Storm React-to-Clean? Well, first, Storm is the company. React-to-Clean is the product. React-to-Clean is a bowling ball cleaner. And we're going to use it to clean the CPU. I'm just going to spray some on this. Like, this is really what I'm using. And it's, the spray nozzle sucks. There you go. Lots of it on there. Also, all you guys out there cringing, like, what in the world is WhyBeAre doing? I lied. I refilled that dozens of times with just rubbing alcohol. And I remembered that, so I just grabbed that. It's not actually bowling ball cleaner. I got some of you, though. Some of you out there who actually know computers are like, what in the world is this idiot doing? Not bowling ball cleaner. Oh my god, he's gonna ruin everything. That's what I'd be like probably if it really was bowling ball cleaner. But nah, this is just rubbing alcohol in a little fancy bottle. So a tiny bit of dirt came off, or grime came off doing that. It's still moist, so we can keep kind of rubbing, and it's not that dirty yet. I just want it to be as clean as I can get it. And I think that'll be the best I can do. And you know, ideally, you want a cloth that will leave no residue or anything. Tissues aren't the best for that. They can leave a little bit of residue, but it's the best I got. So I'm going to spray a little bit more on this if I can get the spray out. There we go. Sorry, that's not on camera, but I try to stick it away from all my computer parts because it is spraying the liquid. And, well, even though it'll evaporate fast, you still don't want to spray liquid on your computer parts, just in case. That's probably as clean as I'm going to get it. And I know, I'm like really going over this, right? That's because you do want it clean to get the best possible connection between the two to make sure the CPU is able to stay cool. You see, that next clean, it's still got a little bit of grime off of it. Again, it's hard to really see it, but there's a little bit of grime on that tissue. And almost makes me want to rub it one more time, but I think that's probably all of it. So now we can go ahead and get to work installing the new cooler. So this hole right here, this is where the radiator will be going. But before we do any installation with that, we have to figure out what are we doing about the fans, because we have 2 fans of one model, 2 fans of another model. So what would be the best way to set this up? But before I really kind of get into that, I need to real quickly explain what a push-pull is. It's really quite simple. So let's say you install one fan, right? And let's pretend this fan grill is a radiator. Now this fan is pushing this way towards the camera, basically. That would be a push setup because it's pushing air through the radiator. But what if you got another fan and stuck it right on top of the radiator on the other side? So you have a fan, radiator, fan. Then you have a push-pull setup because the fan in the back is pushing the air through and the fan in the front is pulling the air through. So that's a push-pull setup. Now back to having 2 fans of the same type. There are 2 ways you can kind of think about this. Maybe you want the matching fans pushing and pulling on top of each other. So you have the matching fans here and then the other pair of matching fans over here. Or maybe you would want one set of fans for the front where it's pushing and one set of fans for the back where it's pulling. I honestly debated about this for a while, trying to figure out what would be the ideal way. If I really wanted to get into it, the best way to figure it out would be to do some benchmarks, but I really don't have the time for that or the setup or the space or just about anything. So I just had to do some logical reasoning. Normally, static pressure fans have pretty thick blades to them. One set of fan has thicker blades than the other, so we're just going to say those ones will have maybe more static pressure, possibly, maybe. So those ones will be the ones that push, and the other ones will pull. Truthfully, though, I really doubt it would make a difference either way. Like, the difference would be so marginal, the actual air temperature in my room would make more of a difference. And if I've never mentioned this before, my body will generate heat. Like, I can't gain weight because my body's too busy being like, this room is only 80 degrees. It needs to be at least 98 in here. And it just radiates heat everywhere. Like, I'll go into the bathroom, take a dump. I'll walk out and it's like, wow, it's 10 degrees cooler out here. So it's hard for me to do any sort of actual temperature measurements with me in the room because I really radiate heat. I don't know why. Totally off topic now, but anyways, what I was saying though, the difference is they'll be so marginal no matter which fan configuration you set up. Even the difference between just a regular push setup or a regular pull setup versus a push-pull isn't that big of a difference, but I have the hardware, so I figure why not? But if you would actually spend the money and get a push-pull setup, usually you're better off spending the money on better other components. Like, for the price of that, maybe you could throw on another radiator somewhere, and then it's even better. But if you have an all-in-one, well, you can't really add a radiator to that unless you have a really fancy all-in-one, like the SwiftTech unit I used to have, or the EK unit that's also out there, but I don't have that because those weren't available for one-day shipping. The all-in-one Corsair unit was. That's also how I ended up with the H110i GT. It was available locally. The stores have gotten worse since then, and they don't even stock that anymore. So now we're on a rant, but you know what I'm about to do, so I'm going to just kind of try to figure out if there's a better camera angle while I install this, and I'll be right back. I could not find a better angle to show you what I'm about to do, plus doing a bunch of screws is kind of boring, so I'll just explain what I'm going to do. First, we're going to go ahead, get the radiator, and we're going to put one set of fans on it. These are going to be the inner set of fans, so the radiator will be sitting here like this, and the fans will be going on this side. Now, the reason you do this is because in most cases, and by cases I mean computer cases, it seems like you always want to attach the fans to the radiator, then install the radiator. Because if you installed the radiator and then you're like, oh, let me put the fans on it, you have to really cramp your arm down here to try to get the fan screwed in. You usually have a case where that's the situation and you're going to want to put the fans on, then install it. But since we have a push-pull, we're going to put one pair of fans on, and then when we install it, the fans are going to be put on as we install it. So I'll kind of show you more about that in a second, but right now, I'm just going to go ahead and put the fans on this one and prepare it for installation. A couple of things worth noting while you're installing the fans. First, you always want to make sure you know which way the air is coming out of the fan, and a lot of fans nowadays have these little indentations on them that show you exactly which way the air is going to flow. So in this one, you know the air is going to flow in this direction, so you know that it's going to be pulling through the radiator. Second, you want to look where the cables are going to be. So these cables are lined up when it's installed. They will be in the ideal location for us to be able to connect everything up as easy as possible. And third, these fans do not like being tightened a lot. The way they're designed, you see it's just kind of this free floating piece of plastic that you screw it into. So if you screw it a lot, eventually you will bend that plastic and possibly even break it. I've had one where I cracked the plastic because I did it too strong because I didn't realize that these fans are so fragile. So whenever you're using these fans in particular, at least, you want to make sure you just do it until you feel a little bit of resistance. Once you start feeling resistance, maybe another quarter turn and then that's it. Because if you do much more than that, you'll end up bending it, possibly cracking it, or even breaking it if you're really unlucky. I think that's all I have to say about this though, so let's go ahead and line it up into the computer. Okay, so I can already tell this is going to be a real tight fit that's going to be a pain to install, but I think it will just barely fit. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to get the screws that we just took out, we're going to throw a washer on it, then we're going to stick it through the exact same hole we removed it from over here, then we're going to feed it through the fan, then we're going to go into the radiator and we're going to screw it into that. And once again, this is something I'm not going to record, I'm just going to do it and I'll be right back. I went ahead and installed the fans like I said I would, so we now have fans, radiator, fans, and then we have some cables for the graphics cards and then the graphics cards. It was a tight fit, but off camera I did do a test fit to make sure it would fit, and my test fit told me it would fit, but then as I was assembling, I'm like, was it really gonna fit? But it did, and as far as I can tell, the fans will still operate properly, so all is good to go. Now we just need to clean up this front and then plug in everything else. But to clean up the front, I'm already here, so I might as well try to do it. But I can't do it with one hand. But we're going to get this dust filter on here with two. Wait. That's not on properly. That's not on properly at all. But I'm going to get the dust filter on, and I'm going to snap on the top as well. They just kind of push and click in. But you need two hands to really click them in properly. So I'll do that, and I'll be right back. Okay, so here we are back at the CPU, and the cooler already has a thermal paste on it, so we don't need to add any of that. All we do is remove the plastic and then install it. And as far as I can tell, the standoffs that are here from the old cooler are identical to the ones that came with the new one, so I don't need to change those out. All I need to do is just put this thing on, and then it should be good to go. I will take a little bit of a look at where the cables come out. So the cables are coming out from this side right here, so I'm going to try to make sure that's at a convenient location, which might mean contorting the tube, though, in an awkward way. I'll find out. So if we did something like that, it's kind of coming from directly above, but it's made in a way where it's only going to come from directly above, so it's probably the best angle I got. I maybe could go like that, but that feels like it's a little too stretching. This one feels the most comfortable, and really, I'm not going for looks here. I'm going to make sure like the tubing doesn't get any kinks in it that could cause damage in the long run. So that's going to be the layout we use. So I'll take the plastic off, line it up, hopefully well. Uh-oh. Wait, are the standoffs different after all? Oh, maybe they are. Whoops. This is bad. This is bad. I thought they were the same. They're not, so I got to swap these out. And this is a rush kind of moment because I already have the thermal paste partially spread. That's probably going to ruin it. And I should probably just put it on new thermal paste, but I'm lazy. I don't want to do that, so we're going to not. All right, let's see. Which of these standoffs are the ones that are proper? Crap. I don't know. I screwed up. Yeah, I just was trying to be lazy about it. Okay, I got some standoffs in my hand. I'm looking through them. These are the ones for the LGA, what is it, 2011 3, probably. They look kind of like it. Is it really different? This looks identical. Am I imagining this? What's going on here? Okay, they're different. They're different. Okay, we gotta remove all these. Yeah, this is a mistake. I will say that now. I made a huge mistake. I thought they were the same by just looking at them, but I never actually brought them up to each other and said, oh yes, they're the same. All I did was test screw on something, and it's like, yep, they have the same threading, and they have probably the same length, but they don't have the same length. These ones were shorter. Okay. Now we're gonna put these new ones on. Hopefully, I'll get this back on fast enough where the thermal paste won't care. You know, for me, I always get paranoid when the thermal paste is like touching the air like this, because it's probably gonna start to make the connection between the heatsink and the CPU worse. Well, it's not really the CPU, well, it is the CPU, I guess. I don't know. I mean, you could say the CPU is inside of that, but it's the CPU. Nobody says that's not really a CPU. People call that the CPU. One thing I just noticed, by the way, I shouldn't be saying this now. That fan right there in the manual, that's the old style fan, not the new one. The blades are nice and fat. All right, let's put this back on right. So we're going to set this on correctly. There, now the screws actually stick out a bit, and I can actually thread something onto them. They have these little pieces that you just stick on top. They are kind of thumbish, so I'll start off by using my hands, and then I'll tighten them with a screw in a moment. A screwdriver in a moment. So one. Yeah, could you believe I do this for a living and I made a mistake that big? I don't usually do this kind of stuff where it's replacing a part that is almost identical but not quite identical. Like, they are different, so I'm hoping performance-wise it's pretty identical. I mean, the radiator itself looks similar, but the pump is different. Maybe this one's more of a replacement for the GTX unit, and I had the GT unit. You know, usually I'm all looking at benchmarks and stuff, trying to figure out what to buy. And this one is just like, you know, this is one of the few that's available, and I already had a Corsair unit, and I know Corsair at least will be good about things if it leaks. Like, they sound like they're like, say, hey, it leaked, and it's in warranty, we'll cover the parts. So I'm just going to tighten all these up off camera, and I'll be back. Okay, all of the screws have been sufficiently tightened, and this is a little bit different. Now, normally this thing can support 2 fans with this plug right here. I, however, have 4 fans. So how am I going to support all 4 fans? Well, I have this. This is a SwiftTech fan controller that I've had for quite some time. I originally got it with my SwiftTech liquid cooler, which had a pump failure, and then I replaced it with the H110i GT that I'm replacing right now. So anyways, the way this works is I just plug in the fans into this, and it will be able to control the fans by using the motherboard's information on the temperature of the CPU. The pump, however, will not be controlled through this unit. The pump will still be controlled through SwiftTech's software because, number one, I think the only way you can actually modify the RPM of the pump is using a micro USB cable. And number two, even if I can change the RPM of the pump, I don't really want to mess with that because I have pumps fail on me a lot. You know, the thing that breaks on my liquid coolers is the pumps. So I hopefully want to just leave the pump alone as much as possible so it'll last as long as possible. Now what I need to do now is probably flip the unit over and start cabling everything up. So what we're going to do, first we're going to plug in the power for the SwiftTech unit, which is a SATA plug. Then we're going to plug in all of the fans into it. And for the pump, we are going to be plugging in the power for it, which is also a SATA cable. And I'll also get the USB plug right here into this. That's just kind of hard to do it with the angle the camera's at, but it goes in right about there. And once all that's cabled up, I'll be right back. Happy news. That seems to have worked with an added bonus I didn't think about. It seems like the fans will run at a slightly lower RPM running off of the motherboard header versus running through the Corsair pump, which means the computer's a little bit quieter at idle than it previously was. And then if I start to like really push it, it goes full jet plane mode because we got 4 fans all winding up to their max RPMs, and it will get ridiculously loud, but I'm totally okay with that because 95% of the time it's not being ridiculously loud, and when it is ridiculously loud, I'm encoding a video, so I don't need to be quiet anyways, because if I'm encoding a video, I can't record a video because that's using up all my computer resources. Anyways, right now I'm actually editing the video I just recorded, and you can see I have lots of takes doing the same thing over and over again until I said what I wanted to say correctly. You know, people say, WhyBeAre, don't edit. Yeah, I don't edit at all. These are all just, they're all in the video. You see 10 takes of the same thing before I say it right. Totally, yeah. One thing I noticed is funny though, my camera angles are so bad. Sometimes it literally looks like what I was recording was upside down. Plus, it doesn't help that my computer case has an inverted motherboard. So that means the motherboard is actually upside down right now, basically, because the motherboard is on this side of the case. It's weird. Usually a motherboard is mounted on the other side of the case. It's mounted on this side. And I had to think about that right there. I'm like, I had to think because it's so backwards. One thing I really like about that though, my liquid cooler, if something terrible was to happen to it where it starts to leak, it keeps the coolant off of the graphics card and off of the power supply, because the power supply is up here and the graphics cards are up here, and then we have the pump down here, and then it has tubing that goes like this kind of thing. So if it does leak, the only things that'll get damaged are the CPU and motherboard. I mean, that's still an expensive thing to have to replace, but it's better than having to replace basically everything if it was to leak and cause issues. So anyways, I think that will do it for this video. I apologize for the terrible camera angles, but I simply don't have the room to do much better than that. Plus it's like, well, I can't really show myself on the camera, and ran out of storage. I knew it was gonna run out of storage, and I'm like, I could totally fit this video in that few megabytes I have. No, I can't. But I was just basically saying that's gonna do it. So till next time, this has been WhyBeAre. I'll see ya.